Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. My name is Dan. I am your host, as always. I just want to let you know, if you're just coming across this podcast, it's primarily 12-step recovery. That's what today's episode is, but at times I do explore people who get sober in other ways. As Bill Wilson said, that we have no monopoly on this thing. And I also like to bring people to the table, and if you're an avid listener, you'll hear that some of the last episodes are people that bring this we must continue to enlarge our spiritual life and grow spiritually in order to maintain this sober thing. And I've had guests, authors, other people who bring modalities and various treatments. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but to how to continue to grow spiritually. And I think that's cool. I'm getting to have people from all over the world on this podcast, and that blows me the way. I'm in my 7th year of doing this podcast and over 300 episodes, well over. I think this is 352, but I can't remember. And I did a little hokey thing in the beginning where I started doing group podcasts with a few of us, and I started them at 001, and then I started doing these one-on-ones and having somebody tell their story, and I jumped out to 100 to kind of keep some separation between those two things, and then I lost track, and I just, hell with it, I'm just going to count one at a time. So there's some, I don't really know, 30 or so missing episodes that I just decided to quit keeping track of that. So you're going to enjoy my guest today. It's super cool. A few weeks ago, you got to hear Sam's story. Today, Sam's gal is in here, Christine. She's going to tell her story. Do y'all have the exact same sobriety date?
2 days apart.
2 days apart. What is your sobriety date?
8/13 of 2023.
Very cool. So what's that getting around? You just crossed over the 18-month mark, right?
Just got my year and a half.
Yep, and we're one of the only places in the world that gives a 18-month chip. And I
got it at that meeting. Yep, sure did.
Super cool. I'm all aboard celebrating this thing. Yes. And those little chips may seem goofy to people. I know people say, like, my sponsees at times will say they don't want to get their chips, for whatever reason.
I was nervous when I first
get your chips. Come on, this is part of the process. Get them if you're eligible for it and they're offering it up at the meeting. Stand up there and get it, because the main thing is it ain't about you anyway.
It's not. My sponsor had to make me my first couple months. The first time around, she had to force me to go get my chips because I was so scared to get up and stand up in a room full of people.
It's hard to do. So Christine's my guest today. I did not say her name yet, so I'll make sure and sneak that in here early. It's hard. It is to get up there, and it's one of the biggest decisions you made in your entire freaking life.
Absolutely.
And to think, like, to be embarrassed, whatever, about getting up there and celebrating it. And the truth of the matter is, you're getting a 30-day chip, and somebody's in there and they've got 2 or 3 days sober, and 30 days seems impossible.
Well, right.
But
and that's
you're showing that it can be done by getting up and doing that, and that carries through.
I had to realize that, because even when I was first coming in, I would see these people get their year, tell me they had 7 years, and in my head, swear to God, I'm thinking, they're lying. Like, there's no way they didn't at least just smoke or, like, have a drink on their birthday, or, like, they're lying. There's no way.
There's a slip in there somewhere.
So, I mean, it is important to show, like, every milestone. And I've always been one that I like to have any reason to celebrate. I make countdowns to concerts. I make countdowns to birthdays. If it's something to celebrate, you celebrate.
Yep. Amen. Yep. Life's too short not to be taking full advantage of that kind of stuff, no matter what. If it's my birthday, although my belly button birthday don't mean much to me anymore, really. At 55 years old, I've had a bunch of them. My sobriety date means more to me than my birthday. Did you grow up around here? Were you born around?
Born and raised in Louisville. I've lived pretty much within the same 5-mile radius my whole life until I moved out on my own. My mom, both my aunts that live here, and my grandparents, they all live within like 10 minutes of each other. So
that's pretty much my story too. We moved in this house when I was 3.
Oh my gosh.
And I grew up, went off and got married. And Mom and Dad wanted to downsize, and my wife and I, when we had 2 kids by that point, we bought we traded houses.
That is funny. So
Yeah.
they lived in your old house?
Yeah, they lived in my very first house, when I bought with
Yeah.
my wife, and it was my first house, and we swapped. And that was a crappy move because everything's got to come out of here and
my
go over
gosh.
there, and everything's got to come out of there and come over here. And I don't know why we couldn't just leave the washer and dryer alone.
Wow, you
but
guys
we
took
had to
everything.
move it. And so it was 2008 that we bought this house. And so yeah, I'm in my childhood, and I am grounded, I'm a
cool.
grounded human being, man. I do not I don't move far.
The house that I grew up in, my true childhood, my mom rented it from this lady for several years, and my aunt and my cousin now live in that house.
Oh, yeah.
So I still get to go to my childhood home a lot too, and he lives in my old room, and
Huh?
it's pretty cool.
Yep, my son is in my bedroom right
Yep.
now, down the end of the hall at the other end of the house. My daughter lives with her mother maybe a mile down the road. My brother lives in between here and there.
It's nice to have everyone close, for sure.
Yeah.
I keep telling Sam, when we buy, eventually I want to be in the loop with the rest of my family.
Yeah, see, I've had some of my family members, like cousins and stuff, move off. And there's a disconnect that happens there, and then they want you to come see them. And it's like, well, that might be okay for a vacation or a visit, but I'm not
For
going to be
sure.
visiting you in Idaho all the time.
For sure. My mom's 1 out of 5, and only 2 of her sisters live here. So the ones that have moved away, I've got family all over, but everyone that lives here is super close. And
Yeah.
my one cousin that I have here, he's always been like my little brother, way closer than a cousin. And actually, my son, his middle name is named after that
Very
cousin.
nice.
So we're very
cool.
close.
What is that?
Gregory. My
Very
son's name is
cool,
Theodore
yeah.
Gregory, and his name is Gregory. So
Yeah. And how old is Theo now?
he will be 3 months in 2 days.
Wow, yeah,
I
that's
can't believe it. It goes so fast.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah,
And everybody told
mind
you.
blowing.
Yeah. Yep. And to have a 19 and 21-year-old,
Yeah.
it feels exactly the same. It was just a minute ago that they were toddlers and babies. And
I know, I could cry every time I think about it.
I'll bet. So I like to talk a little bit about early life and stuff. What was your early childhood life? How was it?
So just me and my mom, pretty much. My mom was
Your
married.
dad wasn't around?
Well, in and out, but not very much. So my mom was married to my dad for 7 years until she got pregnant with me. She left him before I was born. He is one of us, and, I can hope and pray that he will change, but I've come to terms with the fact that he probably never will.
Who knows?
So, early
Got to
years.
detach from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Early years, it was just me and my mom. Single mom. She raised me. She worked full time. She went back to school, but she did everything I could have asked for. She was an amazing mom. She did get remarried for a while. She got remarried when I was 7, and they are not together anymore, but that is because of reasons later in the story. But, I grew up good. I had everything I could ask for, but ever since I can remember, young, I had trouble regulating my emotions. I saw my first therapist when I was 5 for anger. I don't even know, even looking back, I don't know why I was angry. I don't know, if there was something that I was going through subconsciously. I don't know. I was just an angry kid. And saw my first therapist when I was 5, and it was a man. And I have never seen a man therapist again since him, except for when I was in treatment, because I remember specifically he told my mom, when I'm having a tantrum, sit me in a chair and tie my hands behind the chair so that I can't get up, and that'll teach me to calm down. And she did it one time, obviously saw that was probably not the right way to handle things, and never did it again. And I think she immediately felt guilty about even listening to someone that would tell her to do that. So we never went back to him. And I've kind of always been weird about man doctors since then. I don't know if it's because of that, if it's because of other things. I just do not like man doctors of any kind now.
I understand that.
So, yeah, I mean, I was angry, but other than that, I had a good childhood.
How'd you do in school?
Did good in school, always was in sports. I was a dancer for like 12 years. I did other little like recreational sports here and there. I did softball for a while. I did cheerleading, stuff like that. I was pretty smart. I was in the gifted and talented program. But as I got older, it was harder for me to focus unless it was something I wanted you to teach me about.
Sure, yeah.
If I was interested in the subject, I'm very smart. If I'm not interested, I could care less. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to do the homework. And it's genuinely hard for me to, like, it will just go in one ear and out the other, and I will have no idea what you said. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting teaching modality or whatever. We all got to learn to do a certain amount of math. It's just a part of the stuff, and we got to learn to do a certain amount of English. But it does seem that we force kids into learning stuff that is just not up their alley, and it kind of like contaminates a learning process because I'm getting this and I don't want that, and we have this negative bias thing as humans, right? That an ounce of negative weighs more than a few pounds of positive. So
for sure.
So this thing overrides what we're doing. I hear that quite often, and I felt the same way. There's certain stuff that I excelled at, and there was other things that I didn't want to have nothing to do with.
Right, and I would not apply myself if I didn't want to. I just
couldn't.
Yeah,
it's like you couldn't.
It's not that I chose not to. It's like I literally just couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
So, and then during that time, elementary school, my mom started dating who was going to become my stepdad, and it's actually a really cool story how they met. So we were in Florida on vacation. I was 4 at the time, and I wanted to go play in the sand and do all these things, and I saw this little girl that was catching jellyfish actually in a little pail and stuff, and so I went to go play with her, and our families got to talking, and they turned out to be from New Albany, Indiana. And we were from Louisville, and we were both on vacation in Destin, and so my mom and her dad exchanged numbers just so that we could play during the vacation, and we ended up continuing to have play dates when we got home, but what we didn't know is that our play dates were actually because our parents were having real dates. And so we became best friends, and when I was 7, they got married, and she became my stepsister. So, yeah.
That is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Life is funny.
It is.
These coincidences.
Yes.
That, if you believe in those kinds of things.
Yeah, it was cool, and I mean, she did not live with us full time. She's lived with her mom until we were much older and everything. But it was cool to be able to tell people, yeah, my best friend's my sister now, and it was fun.
Yeah. Have y'all stayed in contact?
So our parents split up in 2021, but I still call her my sister. I mean, we were sisters from the time I was 7 until I was 22, so she's
bonds that happen.
Yeah, she's still my sister. She actually lives really close to me now. We talk. I called her on the way here to talk to her about, I get nervous sometimes to not censor my story, and a lot of the reason for that is because of her dad and things that happened, and she still has a relationship with him, and everything was hidden from my family, and it was this very hush-hush thing. So I get nervous, but she told me, that's your truth, and if you want to share it, share it. So
yeah, that's one of the things I didn't say, and I have a few things like we try not to say last names and other things like that, and we try not to throw people under the bus and stuff.
Right.
But then also trust that you will share what you feel comfortable sharing, and not share what you don't feel comfortable sharing. So.
Right. So when they got married, I was 7, and he moved into our house. Obviously, she lived with her mom, but would come stay on the weekends. And I remember being super excited because I never had cable TV, and he had to have cable TV. So when they got married, I was like, yes. I finally get cable. But he traveled for work, so he was not always home during the weeks. But it had always just been me and my mom, so I would still go sleep in bed with her at night. And now she has this man, and I was still doing that for a while. And unfortunately, he took advantage of that and did things to me even while my mom was on the other side of the bed for years. And I knew it was wrong, but I'm one of those people that I froze. I could not say anything. I did not know what to do.
Yeah.
And because of how I grew up, we never talked about sex. We never talked about consent. We never talked about any of those things. I never even had the period talk. So, I didn't even know if I wanted to say something, I didn't even know what to say. So I vividly remember I was in 8th grade in my social studies class, and there was a kid. We had like 4 little desks that the teacher would put together like tables. So we were at little tables. And there was a kid joking about being molested and raped. And it was the first time that I had ever, which I don't know why a kid was joking about that now looking back, but.
Do you remember male, female?
Yeah, it was a guy. Boys, whatever. So, it was the first time I had ever heard a word that meant what was happening to me. It was I made that connection right there, and
similar kind of.
It was the first time I knew like that's what's happening, and that class was right before lunch break. So I remember I stayed back in the classroom and I just started sobbing. I mean, because it was years and years of not knowing what to do, what's happening, anything. And
all of a sudden this thought has been clicked that what has been going on is wrong.
Yep. So I stayed back and started crying, and my best friend at the time stayed back with me, and I told her everything. And, for a 13-year-old, that's a lot. To hear from someone else too. So the teacher ended up coming back in, and he said, "What's going on?" And I did not want to tell him because I knew if I tell him it's going to get scary and people are going to step in. And even back then I was so worried about not hurting other people, even if it was hurting me. So I ended up having to tell him. CPS came to the school that day, and I lied to CPS. Because I did not want my sister to get taken away. I did not want to be the reason the family got broken up.
Yeah, you knew there was going to be a lot of repercussions off of that.
Yeah. So I lied to CPS, and, they still had to call and tell my mom, but they basically told her, we don't think there was anything behind this. She says that she was just making it up. We don't think there's anything to worry about. So at that point, I'm in 8th grade, I'm 13. I had already started self-harming, cutting myself, starting to have some depression and stuff. And I can't honestly say if it was because of that or if it was just a mix of my brain chemistry plus that, plus going through puberty, all the things together. But I was definitely not in a good place. I was cutting pretty much every day. And so because of all the stuff that happened with CPS, my stepdad started to paint this picture of I'm crazy and what's going to happen if, these things keep happening.
That you're crazy.
I'm crazy. I mean, look at what I'm doing. I'm self-harming. I'm acting out. I'm saying these things in school. So right after summer of 8th grade, I was 13 years old, and I got sent away for over a year. So the teen treatment industry there's a lot coming to light about it right now. There's been a few documentaries come out in the past couple months about like what happens in these places. But for me, basically, I got woken up one morning, like really like the middle of the night, like 4:30 in the morning, by these 2 strangers in my house, waking me up like, hello. And my mom had hired transporters to come pick me up, take me to the airport, and send me off because she knew she wouldn't be able to get me there on her own. So they basically pick you up. You can't have your phone. They tell you, we're taking you here. You can't say goodbye to anyone. You're coming with us, like right now.
Wow.
And I mean, for a 13-year-old, that's
horrible.
Horrifying. So I got on the plane with them, and I did 80 days in a wilderness program.
Like in theory, that is like, I hear people talk about that, and in theory, but I don't know that that's.
But looking back
helpful.
as a 13-year-old, I'm like, I was a kid, you know, like.
Yeah, you just get plucked out of your home environment, and there's nothing more important to you than that.
Yeah.
That safety and security of home, and all of a sudden, bloop.
And just not knowing these people that are taking me, and not knowing where I'm going or when I'm going to come home. And, it was scary. So I did 80 days in a wilderness program, which I mean, you literally live outside. You grow your own food. I was at a quote unquote nicer one, so we had porta potties instead of shitting in the woods. But, you know, you did all of that. Our shower was a shed that had one pipe going up it and cold water.
What's your feelings about that today? Like, what's the overall vibe of, was it?
I mean, it was
remains
horrible. It was horrible. And I actually was really sick the whole time. I think because of growing the food, my diet had changed a lot. I was physically sick the whole time I was there too. I think some of that also, now looking back, was probably a trauma response that my body gave. I could not handle it.
Was it co-ed?
Yes. It was co-ed. They kept us separate at night. Thankfully, nothing happened there. But it was co-ed, and it was 13 to 18. So I was one of the youngest people there. And I turned 14 while I was in there, spent my birthday. You know, what a great way to spend a birthday.
Yeah. I didn't, I obviously have not gone through anything like that, but there's a piece of my male brain that goes, hey, that might be pretty cool. But I also understand that being plucked out of your home environment, that's terribly upsetting, and it probably would not have been, at 13, that probably would not have been my actual feelings.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love nature. I love going on hikes. I love doing all that stuff. But in that setting, it's very different. And, you have these counselors telling you what to do, and you're still doing therapy sessions.
Where did you go?
There. I went to a place called Pacific Quest.
Is it in California?
Actually, it was in Hawaii, which sounds really nice.
Yeah, doesn't it?
But you're not on a beach. You're literally in the jungle. Not really a jungle, but in the forest. Yeah. And I mean, we had banana trees, which I did experience some cool things. I got to literally cut down a banana tree. That's cool. I got to grow pineapples while I was there. That's cool. But, for it being what it was, it did not serve its purpose. I was terrified.
Sure.
I think I had more trauma leaving than I did when I came in. The therapy didn't really help. It was kind of a tough love kind of thing. You're going to do this, and we're going to teach you discipline, and, we're going to teach you how to behave. We're going to get you in good shape, pretty much. So it was hard. And straight from there, I was told the whole time I was there, we could write letters, literally snail mail, to our family, and they could snail mail back. And I was told the whole time I was there that I would get to come home. And I remember being super scared because I did not want to miss freshman year. I was going into high school. I was so excited. I did not want to miss my first day. And my mom kept promising, you're not going to miss your first day of high school. We're going to get you home by then. And
this was just in 2013 or so.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 2013. And then the week before I was supposed to come back for my first day of high school, they say, no, you're not going home. You're going to go to a residential program in North Carolina. And almost everyone I know that's been to Wilderness ends up getting sent to a residential afterwards. It's part of their whole industry. They think you need long-term
this integration
aftercare.
Process.
Right. Right.
What was the overriding thing? Do you know? Was it the cutting, or was it?
I think so. Yeah, the self-harm. I mean, I was suicidal at that point.
So you spoke. You told them that you was.
I was very depressed, and I think it was.
Some people confuse cutting with suicidal stuff, and it's not.
It's different.
But freaked out parents.
Right.
Don't know.
Finding razors in the room, finding bloody towels, and in a very twisted way, I think cutting was probably my first addiction.
Sure.
Because you get that
dopamine
release. That's what it is. You get that same rush of this is how I'm going to make myself feel better.
Yep. I have some experience with that too, not personally.
Yeah.
But with my daughter.
Yeah. And I'm sure now, as a parent, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. I even I have been introduced to recovery and stuff. I don't know when she first started presenting, I'm nowhere near I am today.
Right.
But I had some idea, and it still flipped me out.
Absolutely. I'm sure.
I was probably inches and seconds from sending her off someplace, because I don't know what to do.
Right. And I think that's how my mom felt. I think deep down she probably knew that there was some truth to the things that I had said. I think she probably wasn't ready to accept that or come to terms with that. And, it did cause a lot more trauma sending me away and then going to the residential, which I'll get into. But now, as I've gotten older, I have learned that she was doing the best she could with what she knew at the time. She didn't know what to do. She was a scared parent that would have done anything to help her child and make sure I was safe.
Yeah, because just like a razor blade cut, most people are not going to that depths in that. But all it takes is one bad episode, and your child's gone.
Right. And I mean, just even, it's not like she was seeing them, so I'm sure all the other stuff she was seeing, that would have been alarming and scary. And
no substance issues in her?
Nope. A lot on my dad's side of the family.
Your biological dad?
My biological dad. Like I said, he's one of us still in the madness. My grandmother, huge alcoholic. Cousins and uncles on that side of the family. I actually have another cousin on that side of the family who just entered the rooms a couple months ago. And I hadn't seen him in years and saw him at his first AA meeting, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. But that whole family, pretty much, that whole side. So I know where I get that from, but
most people can look and see a little history in that regard.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, a lot of people think that when it's generational like that, it's because you grew up in that environment, but I didn't. I didn't grow up around them. I used to go visit my grandparents on Sundays, but that was it. I've never stayed the night with my dad. It wasn't, he would pick me up some weekends he wouldn't. And as I got older, I guess I just became less interesting and cute, so he stopped coming. But, it's not like I grew up in an environment around that stuff, but it's in my blood.
I agree. I'm pretty sure that it is scientifically proven today that this is a genetic thing. It gets passed down. It is a wiring deal in us that, and you take, again, I don't want to pretend like I know anything because I really don't, but you take some trauma and you take a genetic disposition and you've got an addict or an alcoholic. What was we'll get to it. So
actually, funny that you say that, the trauma and the genetics, those both do play a part. And, mental illness plays a part too. And I have borderline personality disorder. So that comes from the trauma you had when you were a kid. So it literally, you're not born with borderline. It literally is how your brain changes to basically survive the trauma that you're going through.
Circumstances that you're having to deal with.
And I think it's like 70% of people with borderline will end up having substance abuse issues at some point.
Because I got to have some relief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somehow. And that is available.
Absolutely.
Easy, offered to you. Boom, man. You go, I like that.
Right.
Hey, I feel better. And ultimately, at some level, that's the deal. We don't like the way we feel. And we get to put something in us that makes us feel better. And it's magic. It's like, where has this been all my life? I want a lifetime supply of this stuff.
Right.
That's not the way it works out.
I still remember the first time I drank. I remember exactly what it was, what I mixed it with, everything. I remember where I was. And
are we getting to that? Or is this later?
Almost.
Okay.
So
I don't mean to rush either. I just also kind of...
So rewind a little bit. So after I left Wilderness, I was in the residential for 11 months, and that was my entire freshman year. I lived in a residential treatment center in North Carolina.
So like 14, 15.
Mm-hmm. I was 14, turned 15 right before I came home. So at this point, I leave home 13. I'm coming home. I'm 15. I left home. I was in middle school. I'm coming home. I'm about to be a sophomore in a high school with 2,000 kids in it. Mm-hmm. And had been totally removed socially for that entire year and removed from my family. I did get to come home, I think, 3 days for Thanksgiving and 5 days for Christmas. But that was it. And
you just plucked out your friend circles, and then like when you come back, if those are actually still people they think, what's wrong with her?
Exactly.
And
where have I been? Why did that happen? What is she crazy? Was she in a mental hospital? All of those things. Yep. So, and same with the Wilderness, that residential program actually got shut down by the state in December, as a lot of these programs are, because
I have no idea about any of that.
There is a lot of abuse that goes on in them. A lot of just. The best way for me to sum it up is I very quickly learned that if I just kept my mouth shut and stayed in the back, I would be okay. And I think I carried a lot of that with me once I left. If I don't speak up about anything, if I don't argue with anyone, if I don't try to point out what's going on, if I'm just quiet and follow the rules and mind my business, I'll be okay. And that's what I did to get out.
And to some extent, that's probably no matter what their intentions, like whether bad intentions or good intentions, that's what they're teaching you to do.
Absolutely. And I mean, I will say I'm forever grateful. My 2 best friends in the world I met there. One of them I still talk to this day. She lives in Switzerland now. Super cool. We FaceTime, and then the other one passed away a couple years ago, but we still talked almost every day until the day she died.
Suicide, overdose?
She actually died from anorexia. She starved herself to death. Yeah. And a lot of the girls that come out of these places, it's a common theme of you come out and start to have other issues because you're now trying to cope with what you went through there, and you meet all these other girls and see, oh, they're doing this, oh, they're doing this. And so her eating disorder started when we were there.
Yeah.
Because other girls there were doing it. And
we do this substitute, like,
absolutely.
This is not working anymore. I'll do this.
And I mean, at that age,
this not working anymore. I'll do this. And
right. And at that age, especially for girls, I think we're so impressionable and so just want to do anything to fit in. And so, things like that happen because you're trying to be like everyone else. Yeah. I
wouldn't want to have grown up in the last, when I was a kid, it was a completely different world.
No social media, Yeah, so I mean, that kind of leads into the start of me using, like I said, you want so badly to fit in. And so within weeks of me coming home was the first time I smoked weed, the first time I drank. I started doing pills that same year, but it started just because, like I said, I had been so removed, and now I'm coming in to this high school with 2,000 kids in it, and I had no idea how to make friends, and they all knew each other. So I started smoking to try to be able to hang out with people and try to quote unquote fit in. And then I remember I got invited to this girl's house. She was a grade above me. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm cool. The older kids want to hang out with me. And we drank vanilla Burnett's and Coke Zero. Disgusting. But I specifically remember it. And I remember I drank almost all of it by myself, and she had like 2 mixed drinks. I mean, the first time, I had never drank before, and I already was like,
overshooting the mark.
This is amazing. I need more, I need more, I need more.
My very first time getting drunk was at this very table.
Oh my gosh.
On a snow day, like in 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember, and a buddy called and knew my parents worked, and he said, hey, what do you think? Your mom and dad gone? Let's get some beer today. Come over to your house and drink it.
Oh my gosh.
And I had nothing. Obviously, there's one of my favorite speakers. I lost him. How did I lose him? He said, if they'd asked me to let's go kill the Spanish teacher, I'd have said, okay. It wouldn't matter. Whatever they were asking me, what they were saying, do you want to be a part?
Right.
And whatever they just said. Let's snort a bunch of cocaine. It wouldn't have made any difference what they said. My answer was going to be yeah.
Absolutely.
And I sit here and overshot the mark. And them guys had to shire me off because I puked, and they cleaned up the house, and they put me in bed and cleaned out the premises and everything. And nobody was any the wiser.
Do you feel nostalgia sitting here now, like thinking
I feel a ton of nostalgia sitting here.
Wow, that's cool.
All the time. And it's funny. It's interesting that I sit here and do this podcast at this very table where I had my very first, Dad gave me, alcohol was around. So you could get a sip of Uncle Ronnie's whiskey and water. You could get a sip off of Dad's beer.
Right.
It was all no big deal. And I don't ever remember any head change in any of those times. It was at this table that day with Kurt and Tracy that the 3 of us sit here and
went to town.
And like I overshot the mark. I was the guy at the concerts that they were waking up at the end because I overshot the mark. Come on, Dan, concert's over. At various other things at the bars. Give me the keys. I'm going in the car and passing. And that just
all the time.
From that first time here at this very table. This very table was my grandma's too.
Wow.
It's got leaves in it that'll stretch it out like I don't know, 16 people or something you can put around this table.
That's cool.
And it is cool that it's got that history.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's got that other energy attached to it. And now it's got a whole brand new energy attached to it.
For sure.
We've got doing recovery here at this table
God doing
now.
some foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started like that. It was just always, I needed to do more. It was never enough. And, you know.
And girls get in trouble quick over drinking. And other things happen.
Oh, yeah. And that happened a lot, not so much in high school, but when I got later into my addiction. But throughout high school, you know, it started just like that. But with it, by the end of my sophomore year, the first year I was back, I was smoking weed every day. I was drinking every weekend, going to parties. And I had started to experiment with pills, mostly Xanax. And back then there was like 10 different kind of Xanax you could get. They had like the yellow school buses and the green goblins and the footballs and the, you know, it was all pressed, whatever, but it was cool that you knew all that and that you had options, and
it was real Xanax, not just
at that time when I started.
Like now it's like the drug supply is not safe anymore.
For sure. When I started, it was
pills,
the real stuff.
That's what it was mostly, like the Xanny bars and all that.
Yep. And so I was doing a lot of that, and then summer comes and you get to go to your parties, the field parties and the house parties and stuff. And just throughout high school it progressed, and like I said, those things that happen to girls didn't happen to me then, but I think because of the trauma I had, some people deal with it by shutting down sexually. I dealt with it by being hypersexual, because remember, I still lived with this man. My mom was still married to him at this time. I came back home and they acted like nothing had ever happened, and everything.
But it stopped?
Yes, it stopped, because at that point I was old enough and he knew that I knew because of everything that had happened, and I just stopped letting myself be in situations where I was ever alone with him. Mm-hmm. And I made sure any way that I could, I was not alone with him.
Right.
But, we never talked about it. The whole time I was gone, they tried to bring it up one time in therapy, and I shut them down and said, I'm not talking about this. Because, again, I was scared of what would happen if I did. So, throughout high school, I was kind of hypersexual. I would do more than I probably should have, and willingly, because it got me that attention. And it got me that validation of, this person wants me, this person needs me, this person likes me. And so that's kind of how I dealt with it, I think.
And those dopamine hits are in that too,
For sure. And to internalize the fact that, I'm still going home and looking at this man every day. So, I did graduate high school. I co-opted my senior year because I was just done. And at 17, when I was a senior, I was already pretty deep into addiction. I mean, I was young, but
and
I was
too. I went to work graduated halfway through my senior year and went to work.
Yep. I, was finding
cokehead my entire senior year.
See, I had not gotten into the uppers yet. That came the summer after senior year. But, I graduated high school, but I was barred out or high almost all the way through senior year. Can't tell you much about it.
Me either. I don't remember high school.
No, I mean, really don't. I got suspended.
Pieces.
Yeah.
But it's a fog.
Tidbits. And, I think at that time, when I look back, those tidbits may still have a bit of, oh, that was a fun memory, because to me, in that time, I didn't realize it was a problem, and I thought I was just a teenager having fun.
And I was having fun.
I was too.
I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
At some level, I don't regret it, really. I mean,
right.
The end of the road was
Absolutely.
a different story, but I was having a blast.
I was too, and I think, when you're a teenager, no one thinks that a teenager can be an alcoholic or a drug addict. Like, that's quote unquote, it's normal. You're a high schooler. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have fun, but it's just
Do you remember, too, the element of people who did and didn't, though?
Oh, yeah.
Because I was in a jock thing, too, played basketball and football and basketball and stuff like this, and, I was one of the black sheep on the sports teams, because most of those guys weren't doing what I was doing.
I was definitely a black sheep. I mean, I had friends, but I was never in a friend group. I kind of bounced and had one friend in every, I was friends with the jocks. I was friends with the stoners. I was friends with the art kids. I was friends with the...
I'd like to think that too, but I look at it like It was playing both sides of the fence in some level.
I think it was, and I think it was just me desperately trying to find where I fit in, and I never did.
Yep, me too.
So, yeah, I graduated. Thank God.
Yeah, me too.
And
That's what I tell
then
people. I barely graduated high school, but I got good grades. I actually did. One of the things I've learned was, and I found out that if you got good grades, people stayed off your back.
yeah,
Mom and Dad didn't get on you. Your grades dropped, they started getting focused on you. If you kept your grades up, and I was smart, we mostly all are, right? I mean,
yeah,
if I kept my grades up where they needed to be, A's and B's pretty much all the way through high school.
wow. Good for you.
Yeah, did really good. But it was, I know today it was because Mom and Dad didn't.
Because you were doing anything you had to do to get what you wanted. I mean, it starts.
Exactly right.
It starts that young, and I wish I could say I had good grades, but by senior year I did not. But that because I was so worried about the other stuff. So I graduated, and I was supposed to go to IUS to become a special education teacher, actually. And then that's a weird statement. You were supposed to. Who said you were supposed to? That's what you wanted to do? that was my plan.
Okay.
Until the summer after senior year started. And then I decided I did not want to go to college. I wanted to live my best life and
I couldn't.
party, and I
couldn't do both. Once I got out of
Exactly.
high school, I just could not do both, and I couldn't really admit that to anybody. You got these good grades in high school, but the
Exactly.
disease was progressing, and I couldn't go to that next level and maintain that.
And I think I
doing
knew
what
that.
I was doing.
I knew that subconsciously that I couldn't do all these things if I was in college. And, my family wasn't poor, but we weren't rich by any means. And I'm not going to spend all this money going to college if I know I'm going to drop
Dropping
out.
classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ended up not going. And that summer it got really bad, really fast. I mean, right before my senior year ended, I met what would become my first long-term boyfriend. And, we started dating that summer after high school. And when I met him, he had liquid hydrocodone, which I had never done. And they told me to dip my finger in it because it's really strong. Just take a little bit. And I took it was like a little plastic shot cup. And I took it and drank the whole thing. And, he had a sock full of Xanax that day too, and for some reason in my head I knew this is the guy for me, but really it was because I know he's going to be able to help me get whatever I want whenever I want. And so we started dating and things progressed really quickly. I did cocaine that summer. I started living out of my car a lot because I didn't want to go home, because I knew if I went home I was going to have to hear it, or my mom was going to ask what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. So I just didn't go home. I slept on someone's couch, or I slept in the car, or, did what I had to do. I lost my job that summer because I just could not keep up anymore with going to work and being high all the time. And so I ended up just forgetting to go to work so many days in a row that they fired me. And I found out I was fired at a party through a coworker. But, what other way was I going to find out, I guess?
So, Christopher and I do this I Am 1-2 podcast, and that's the background. Do you ever watch it?
Yep.
Do you ever watch them?
No, I have not seen any.
We check them out. They're on
I
YouTube.
will.
Christopher's got a great deal of education and talks, I don't know, there's too many people that know more deeply, but one question he always asks the guest, because I sit over here and produce.
Right.
I play a little role in the actual talking and stuff,
my gosh.
but not much. What was the one drug was the one that went, that's it right there?
Xanax.
It's interesting. We're all wired for something different, and and we all can pretty much almost with a snap of the finger, like that fast,
Yep.
go, it was this.
And as it progressed, I was one of those, I liked to call myself a chemist. I would mix anything I could. I would see what...
We were amateur chemists to get just the right amount of this, and just the right amount of this, and just the right amount of this to get me right where I need to be.
Exactly. And, I would push it as far as I could, and I wanted to see what different things felt like with different things. But Xanax was the thing I had to have every single day. Those
Terribly
are really
addicting too.
Really
It
addictive.
really is. It hooks you, and it's the one of the two things that you can die of when you detox off of it.
Yep. And alcohol too. And
Alcohol and benzos.
that one became another I had to have every day. And then it got to a point into my 19, 20, 21 where I had to have both because I only liked the way I felt when I mixed them. I liked to drink and have my Xanax. And I mean,
liked alcohol and opiates. Those are two of my favorite things.
And that's scary.
Getting that magic mixture of those two things. And, I could ride out the workday on the opiates, the pain pills, real pain pills, because as I tell, my little story is if you give my dad a 5 milligram hydrocodone, he's on the couch for 8 hours. You give me, and it would never be 5, but you give me, let's just throw out there, 30 milligrams, and I'm raking the leaves and vacuuming the house and dusting, and it was energy giver to me, and I could ride the day. I felt like I was more productive at work. And then as soon as I got off the clock,
you crashed.
Introduced the alcohol. And more of that, man. And would ride into the evenings with 2 little kids here, a wife. I didn't sleep in my bed with my wife for 8 years. I slept upstairs in that recliner up there. I mean, once in a while I would. It wasn't like never. But, she was going to bed like a normal human being, and I was still chugging pills and booze.
And that's the thing, too. Like, I felt like, I was ending the party early. If I just stopped, I had to do it until I passed out.
Yep.
There's no stopping. It's, no, I'm not done yet. I'm still going until you literally pass out.
Yep.
And it's just a cycle. And
well, I got a good buzz.
Yeah.
I am not going to sleep on it. That's wasting it.
It's wasting it, exactly. And if you have anything left in your cup, you can't waste that. I mean, I'm not going to let it just sit there. So, but I feel the same about, how you said it gave you energy. If I got just the right amount of Xanax before I started doing everything else, we used to go out car hopping. We used to, I could go in stores and I would feel no anxiety. I could talk to anyone. I was the friendliest person. I could make friends with anyone. I could go anywhere and not have a worry in mind. But the problem was I couldn't stay at that amount. Because once I got that amount and I started feeling good, it was, I need another one, I'm feeling good. I need another one, I'm feeling good. Now I've taken 4 and I forgot where the last 2 went because I forgot I took them. So I guess I'm just going to take another one.
Yep. And I don't want to come down.
Yeah.
Well, that is one thing. I want to come down in my sleep.
Yeah.
Not awake.
Yeah, it's rough. And I do, as I got older and into my 20s and things.
So were you just getting all these benzos off of black market, just people selling them, or were you prescribed?
Nope, never got prescribed them. Always from the street. I had several different plugs, and I know a lot of people, when they get really deep into their addiction, they have to go through withdrawals and waiting to get the next one and all that. But I think I was so terrified to let that happen that I never let it happen. I would have 4 or 5 plugs at once, and I would rotate between them so that none of them actually knew how much I was doing. And so, I
don't want to let anybody see you think that you got a problem.
Right, as if I wasn't walking in with my eyes closed, Yeah. So I would rotate.
It's the same thing with liquor stores, go into different, I didn't want to go to the same liquor store too often. I would go around the other one so that nobody would see that I had a problem.
Yeah. And so, I would do that. I would rotate to make sure that no one would cut me off, or if one of my plugs was out, I know the other one would have them, and I never let myself run out. If I knew I was getting low, I would go pick up my next batch.
I've never heard anybody call them plugs. That's a new term to me.
It's a young term, I guess.
Yeah, I'm an old dude.
So, and I was an alcoholic before I was 21. I had a friend that would buy me, and COVID happened right before I turned 21. So now at this point, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, and I'm stuck in the house. So I had 2 friends, actually, that I would call, and I would have them go pick me up a 5th and go pick me up my White Claws and bring them to my house every single day during COVID. And then I did turn 21 the summer that COVID started, and at that point, I'm going to the store every day, and the people at the liquor store knew me, and if I didn't have money that day, the lady would literally look at me and say, "It's okay, I know you'll be back."
Wow.
That's sad.
I've never seen anybody get fronted at the liquor store.
That's sad. Well, I was also buying the cheapest thing I could. I would buy a 5th of Burnett's because I wanted to have more money for drugs. So I'm buying the cheapest liquor I can find. And it was like clockwork every single day. So I did that, and it just kept progressing and kept progressing. And when you get that far down, you don't care what happens to you. And then things did start happening to me, or I would put myself in situations where I never sold my body. And I will stand on that. I never sold my body to get money for drugs. However, I would put myself in situations where I knew as a woman, if I did certain things, I would get free drugs, or I would be able to get what I wanted, or they would give me a good deal. And I hate that. I'm very ashamed of that. I hate that I did that. But, you get to a point where you're in survival mode and you're doing anything you can do to get by.
If I could have done that, I'd have done it. I know I would have.
Yeah.
Just a different world.
Yeah. So, I did that. And then when I was 22, it's the first time I went to rehab and got sober. And it was not by choice. I went to go get my fix, and all of my plugs were dry, which had never happened to me before. So I started panicking, and, I'm reaching out to anyone I could think of that would have it. And someone finally texted me, and they said, here's this person's number, hit them up. And I did, and I got it all planned out, and I was going to go get my stuff. And I just remember the whole drive there. I remember I just had this horrible gut feeling, I don't know if I thought they were going to rob me, or if it was a setup, or I don't know, but I just knew I had a bad feeling about this and I should not go. But you pair that with an addict brain who needs to get their stuff, and I'm not listening to my gut. I'm going to get it. So I went and got it, and that was the first time I got a laced pill. It was not Xanax, it was fentanyl. And I had plans that night to go out drinking with one of my friends, so I took it. And I took one, and I remember thinking, this is not what one Xanax feels like. I don't feel one Xanax. I take one Xanax to, be okay. And I remember thinking, this is not what I should feel like. And I still went to her house. We started drinking before we went out, and that's all I really remember. But apparently I was falling over, breaking stuff, could not handle it, and had way less than I did on a daily basis, so should have been able to handle. And instead of her taking care of me, she walked me out to my car, put me in my car, and told me I needed to go home. So got in the car, started driving home. I don't know if I just passed out behind the wheel. I don't know if I was just so out of it that I couldn't tell, but I was driving in the wrong lane, driving the wrong way down the road, and had a wreck with 3 other cars. I had a liver laceration. I had internal bleeding. I have nerve damage in my leg, and got taken to the trauma center at U of L. And my phone had fallen off of me in her driveway. So my mom was trying to find me, didn't know where I was, took her 2 days to find me in the hospital, and that was a whole thing. So when she found me and I had come to, she was like, you're not going home. You're getting help, or you're not going to have somewhere to live. So I had to stay in the trauma center until I was medically cleared, basically, to go to rehab, because I had all these things internally going wrong. So February 18th, 2022 was the first time I went into rehab. And I went to Robert Alexander Center. I detoxed. I'm not a pretty detoxer. We learned that very quick. They had to call the police on me because I started flipping my shit, losing my mind on everyone, and it was not pretty. So I stayed the 30 days, and they encourage you to do aftercare, and I'm like, no, I've got it. And I stayed sober for about a year, but I don't think it was because I didn't really work a program. I went to meetings sometimes, but I was doing the bare minimum. I did the first 3 steps, then decided I didn't need the rest of the steps. But I started dating a staff from the rehab center the day I got out. Which, looking back, red flag. Why is this guy 6 years sober wanting to date me just coming out of rehab? That should have been a red flag to me, but it wasn't. I thought that I was so in love. So I stayed sober pretty much until we broke up, and he was a good guy, but just because you're sober doesn't mean you don't have other addictions. I'll just say that. There were other addictions going on that severely affected our relationship. and my confidence because of the other things I had been through. And we ended up breaking up, and very shortly after that, I relapsed. But yeah, I feel like I'm like skipping over a lot. I just realized I never touched over when my mom left my stepdad. The year before I went to rehab, my mom ended up leaving him because she had found enough of her own evidence, and basically I come to find out years later that she knew for several years that I had told the truth, and she was saving up to make sure that we would be okay once we left him. So in 2021, she did leave him and move out on her own, and that's where I finished, my addiction before I went to treatment. So yeah, I felt like I should clarify that. Like, wait, that's a big part that I skipped over. And the relationship that I had with that first guy that I talked about when I started my addiction, we stayed together that whole time for almost 5 years. And it was very abusive, physically, verbally. I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to leave the house without him. I wasn't allowed to wear tight clothes. I wasn't allowed to post things without him knowing. It got physical at times. But I stayed with him because, number one, I was scared to leave. But number two, he was a lot of how I got my stuff. And there were times throughout those 5 years where we were on and off, and that's when, I would go meet these other people or do these things to get what I needed and whatnot. But we were together on and off that whole time, and I finally left him when I went to treatment that first time. So, yeah.
Somebody's coming and going, probably my son.
That's okay.
That's another reason why I kind of wall us off a little bit so we're not distracted when
That's okay.
people, because he'll come in the kitchen, I'll see him through the crack, and he'll get something out of the refrigerator or whatever. He knows what I'm doing. So when you got out and the breakup happened, did you relapse back onto the Xanax? Is that?
No, actually. So I hit my year sober, like literally weeks after we broke up. And I had moved in with him and everything, so I ended up having to move back in with my mom. And I just thought oh my God, my whole life as I knew it sober is gone. I'm living back at home.
In your early 20s and my life is over.
Yeah, that whole thing. So I really had a goal to hit my 1 year. So I did hit my 1 year, and then I said, I think I can just smoke weed. I genuinely thought in my head, I've been sober a year, I can just smoke weed and handle it, but it's going to help me get through this. It's going to help me feel better. So I started smoking weed, and honestly, it was fine for a few months.
Sure, yeah. We've seen some of us, there's some of us that hit it and we're 100 mile an hour and off the fucking chains, right?
Yeah.
But others, I'm more of your type that, I can manage.
For a while, till you can't.
3 or 4, 6 beers and not really be going over the limit. But it just goes.
Exactly. And I started to feel it happen. It was fine for a few months, and then I realized, my whole logic was, oh, well, weed's a plant. Weed's natural. It's fine. But then I started to think, well, shrooms are natural, and shrooms are a plant, so that must be fine. And then kratom.
Poppies and heroin. That's natural. No,
but in my head, I know that. But in my head, it was a justification,
sure,
And so, and it's funny you say that, because now when people say that about weed, I say that to them. I say cocaine comes from a plant. Heroin comes from a plant, At
some level, alcohol is natural.
Yeah, it comes from potatoes, vodka.
It for thousands of years before we had anything synthetic going on. That alcohol is maybe I don't know, you throw it up or you hear about I had no idea when I heard about these opium dens like in China from way, 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 way back.
Yeah.
That basically they were doing heroin.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
But just pure opium.
Yeah, pure opium. And I actually was a guy who actually got to have some pure opium in my lifetime. And it's really good.
I'm sure it is.
I didn't know, at the time, if you just said, Dan, you're doing heroin. Oh, man, this is opium. It was a pasty stuff. We used to take and roll a little snake of it up and then put it in a joint.
Wow.
And you'd even see the stain in the paper. And man, Heck yeah,
That's crazy.
That was
I don't
good.
think I've ever talked to anyone that's done actual pure opium.
I mean, that's what it was told to us to be. Who the
Right.
fuck knows what I was really taking, right?
Yeah.
But it was long before the fentanyl had ever been even mentioned or anything of that nature. And I think it was opium.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean,
it had a
I shouldn't say
grapey
that's
taste.
cool, but it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started justifying other things, shrooms, kratom that I could buy when I was going to buy my papers for the weed, and
I'm still surprised they sell that shit right out of gas stations, but I guess
It's
the alcohol's
horrible.
not any different.
and it's legal. You can go into Cox's Smokers Outlet and just buy. I'm like, it blows my mind,
I
but
hear more and more people, coming into rooms talking about that's their problem.
yeah. So I think once I started doing that, and kratom gets very addictive very fast. And so once I started doing that, I realized I'm going downhill and I don't want to go back downhill. So I actually called one of the ladies from Robert Alexander Center, the treatment center, and said, hey, I'm starting to struggle. I have not drank yet. I have not done any hard drugs yet, but I know I'm going to. Can I come back before I do anything else? And the insurance world is pretty fucked up. So I literally had to drink to get back into rehab. And I did, because I thought that was, at the time, I thought that was the right choice.
It may not have been
It
the
wasn't.
wrong choice. I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, Like
Right.
when my daughter was withdrawn from opioids at 17 years old, there was nobody that would detox her
Because she was 17?
because she was a minor
Wow.
and it was opioids. If she'd have been, and they plainly said, if she took benzos
Yep.
or if she drank, we'd take her.
Yep. It's
But
horrible.
because of this, so we had to, her mom and I detoxed her at home.
Yep. It's horrible, and it's, I was trying to catch the demon before it came back. And so I drank, and, I hadn't had a drink in 16 months at this point. And I remember I got it, and I sat in my car, and I did not take that sip until I knew they were on their way to come pick me up, because I was so scared that if I did before, I wouldn't call them to go back.
Yeah, get a little buzz going
Yeah.
and then say, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Exactly. So I did, and even that first time having it again, I just sat there and I thought, oh my God, this feels even better than before. It's been so long, I forgot what this felt like. And so again, I went, I did the 30 days, didn't want to do any aftercare, and I actually was supposed to move into my first apartment by myself after moving back in with my mom the weekend I went back. So thankfully, my family made arrangements with the landlord. So the day I got out of treatment, when I had gone back that second time, was the day I moved into my first apartment by myself. Probably not the best idea. So, that day I get out, I go home, I see this brand new apartment all to myself in the Highlands near all the bars. And I got in my car and found my dab pen. And do you know what a dab? Okay. Some people don't when you say that, they call it different things. So
I don't know what it really is because it's new.
It's-
right? There's
it's-
a lot of stuff that wasn't around when I stopped that's around now, but I know I've heard of that.
It's wax. It's very concentrated THC, basically,
yeah.
and a little vape that you can hit. So I found it in the car, and even after everything I had just done, literally called them to go back because I knew that weed was taking me down a bad road again. I find my dab pen, and I think, just one hit to celebrate the new apartment. I just got out. I'm just going to do this. I'm alone. No one will know. And then I can really start my journey over.
It's that old hot stove thing. I can put my hand on it this time and it won't burn me. Yeah, I can do it.
Exactly. So I did that, and then, of course, off to the races again. But that time, when I got out in June of 2023, it was off to the races, and it was quick, and it was worse than ever before. Because like we talked about, when I started, it wasn't fake stuff. You knew what you were getting, and I didn't start getting fentanyl and fake things until the very end. So, I come back out and start doing stuff again, and it's in everything, and it took me quick. And I started doing things I had never done before. I started seeking out drugs more than I ever had before, wanting more things at once, needing it.
That's the drug dealer's paradise thing.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is quick acting, highly addictive, and it wears off fast.
Yep. And so, I mean, I was just anything I could find, wherever I could find it, whatever I could do to find it. And
were you doing like the perk 30? So is that what?
No.
Where was you getting it?
I was getting powder. You can get it in powder. I was getting fake Xanax that just had who knows what in it,
right.
Synthetic stuff. I started doing ketamine all the time. I started doing cocaine. I mean, that relapse truly took me to a level where it was just off to the races. I'm partying 24/7. Whatever I can get, I'm doing it. And that lasted a few months, and funny enough, in those few months, I reconnected with that ex that I was with for all those years during my entire addiction. And in my fucked up head, while I'm sitting here doing drugs, I'm thinking, I'm going to save him now.
Yeah.
I'm going to help him, and I'm going to show him how much better life is when you don't do all this stuff. Even though I had started doing it again. I mean, what kind of thinking is that? So, because I knew that he had really gone off the deep end and gotten into some dark stuff. And so that happened. We ended up basically just making each other's addictions go crazy. And, you know, as much as I say he was abusive and toxic, I was probably toxic for him too. We should not ever see each other again. It will not be good. So I did that, and it got to the point where my mom decided she was going to Casey's Law me. I didn't know this at the time, but she was coming into my apartment and checking my pulse at night to make sure I was still alive. And, you know, she wouldn't hear from me, and just sneaking in. Apparently there was one time she came in and I was so out of it, I thought she was one of my friends, and I asked her if she wanted to do a line with me. My mother. I mean, now I look back and I'm mortified. Like, what in the world? And so she came over to my apartment in August. So it had only been June, July, August, 3 months since I had been back out. And it just was like nothing I had ever done before. And it was scary. So she came over one morning and said, I have a lawyer. I filled out the paperwork. I'm going to file Casey's Law, or you can go today. And I won't take you to court. Because with Casey's Law, they basically court order you to treatment. And if you don't go, or if you leave, they put you in jail. And I'm too bougie for jail, and I knew that. So I thought, yeah.
That's what I always say, too. I am not prison material.
I am not. And I'm vegetarian, so I've always thought, thank God, knock on wood, you know, I've never been to jail, because I think I would, like, starve to death. So. That's
what I stood in front of Judge Cody down in New Albany, and he said the sentencing guidelines for the crimes you have committed is 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections.
Oh, my gosh.
No,
I would
still
too.
Couldn't stop. I was 6 months later before I finally was able to hang on to my current sobriety date.
You can't, nothing. And honestly, I'm truly blessed that I never did go. I mean, I had been in 2 other wrecks where I had totaled cars, you know, gotten caught stealing things, gotten caught, dozed off behind the wheel. And truly, God was looking out for me, because I have never been in jail. I don't have any charges. I mean, I was a white girl driving a Blue Beetle Bug for a long time. And as unfortunate as it is to say, I think that probably helped me. But yeah, so anyways, my mom basically said, you're going right now, or I'm taking you to court. And I took a shower, did my last few lines of whatever I had, and said, okay,
of course,
I'll go. And that was August 13th, 2023. And, you know, I had still been going to meetings that whole time during that relapse and trying to convince people that I was sober, but I just kept relapsing every day. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I said too. I had quite a bit of my life where I was pretending to be sober.
Yeah.
But most people knew that, you know, and that's the thing that, like, now some of the people that I was able to, you know, that know me today, saw the change happen, you know, and they saw what was going on with me. And because I first started trying to get sober in 2011, and my sobriety date's 2015. So
Okay.
I got that 4 years of
In and out
and coming back and getting a white chip and getting a 30-day and then disappearing for a little while and starting it over again. And, you know, they just kept on welcoming me back and loving me back into the rooms, you know. And some of those people are some really good friends today that saw saw all that, and they knew when I'm in there trying to pretend like I'm sober. And even when I showed up to the Spiritual Underground, I was not sober, but I was telling them I had sober time, because I've been coming to AA for almost 4 years now, and I could reconcile that, in my head that that exposure time in AA was like sober time.
Right.
Even though I knew I wasn't.
Even though you're going home every night. And I was calling my sponsor literally every other day in those few months. I relapsed. No, I'm going to do it for real this time. I'm going to do it next day. I relapsed again, and it's like, no, you're just not sober right now. But I do think it's cool, those people that get to experience you do that and then see that change, because those are some of the closest people to me now, that get to watch you truly get it. Yep.
I have a really good friend named Becky, and I think she is the first person that I shook hands with in an AA room.
Wow.
Where we said, "Hi, my name is Becky, and I'm an alcoholic," and I just parroted that back. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a fucking clue. And I think it's, probably, I've said this a bunch of times on the podcast too, but it's probably more accurate to come in and say, and use Bill's words in that book, that I'm probably alcoholic. Because I didn't even know what it meant when I first got there, right? I mean, I could tell you that I had a drinking problem, but I didn't know the depths of what alcoholism, addiction, this spiritual malady we have, and what it really was, But,
right.
And Becky is now my financial advisor.
Wow.
So my money, because I held a job for 28 years, engineering. I was an engineer. Well, I was a draftsman, and they promoted me to engineer. And I worked as an addict alcoholic for 24 years for them. And then I was sober for 4, and they laid me off.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I did.
And, rolled out that. I had a pretty good chunk of money from putting in the 401k for 28 years, And so I remember sitting around, I was going, I need to roll that out of there. I've just been told and heard that you don't want to leave your money in something. You can leave it with that employer. You're not contributing to it anymore or anything, and it's still yours, and you can allow it just to grow with the stock market there, but you're better off to take it out and manage it and maybe even add to it out of your own earnings.
I didn't even know you could leave it with your employer. You just taught me something.
It's not advised. It's not advised. You should, and I'm sitting around thinking, surely I know somebody that knows this stuff, man. And there was a guy that was in our home group, but I just really didn't feel comfortable with him. And Becky called me. She called me.
Wow.
And it's like, ring. And it was when I was handymanning.
Did you know that's what she did?
I knew that's what she did, but it just didn't come to consciousness,
Yeah.
And she had called me to do some handyman in her house. That's why she was reaching out to me. And she's wanting to know if Mark can fix this and this and this. And I said, well, I got you on the phone. Well, here's my situation. She said, sure. So she's a dear friend of mine. She's been on the podcast.
Cool.
Just because whatever the rules for that is, you have to meet once a year anyway to have a meeting. And so I get to, at least once a year, we go out to eat with each other. But that was the first gal first person that I shook hands with and said, hi, I'm Dan, I'm alcoholic. And she's still a dear friend today. And that's pretty cool. And that's 15 years ago,
It is. And you will always think of that when you think of her. I think that's cool, those people that
I fogged up a little bit just sharing that.
Yeah.
And I could feel it misting in my eyes of how much she means to me. And, these people in AA that just kept on. There were some of the assholes too.
For sure.
That said, boy, you need to go back out and get some more pain. Come back when you got,
Come back when you're ready. I got that a lot.
That kind of stuff too. And that's okay. One of those guys is a friend of mine too. That still is a dear friend in recovery. So I needed some of both,
Yeah.
But I really needed to love, and that's what the energy I try to put off today. I have to speak the truth about this disease to these people, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that comes off hard, and that's like what the one guy was doing, Is that also that mix of, I won't want to say tough love or whatever, but man, if I slip up and go out, I want these people to welcome me back, because I will need to come back.
Right.
And and being an asshole to me is not going to help in that regard.
And I think it was scary, you know, at that time when I was going in and out, why I didn't want people to know, because it's scary to look at them and say, like, yeah, I messed up again, and what are they going to think?
Awful.
And, you know, they've got all this time, and are they going to judge me? Are they still going to want to be my friend? And it's hard.
And the real energy, what I've seen for the most part, is glad you're back.
Absolutely.
You know, come on,
Absolutely.
jump in.
Yeah. So I went back August 13th, 2023, and obviously that's my sobriety date, so I did something right.
You went back to RAC?
Yep. It was my third time there. At that time, I was like, you know, I thought I ran the place or something.
Yeah,
Because it was my third time there. I knew all the staff, whatever.
It's funny how many things we got in common. I had 3 trips, and like the last time, it dawned on me, like, I'm way too comfortable in here.
That's what you feel. It's like
This is like, I'm telling everybody, here's how you get a spare pillow. Here's
Oh,
how
yeah.
You know, just all of the little things and tricks and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to be like good at doing rehab.
right. And it's like, on one hand, it's good because you feel comfortable. But then I had that thought too, like, it's not cool that all the staff knows me. You know, it's not like this
is not a good
This
thing.
is embarrassing. Like, I need to get it. And so I went, and like I said before, my detoxes are horrible. And this time, because of what I had been doing the past few months, it was really bad. They told me, you know, they drug test you when you come in, and I detoxed from 8 different substances at the same time. So, you know, I was not in good shape. And when I walked in, there was, I'm sure he told you this too on his episode, but when I walked in, there was this guy that I knew from the Token Club. And to be quite honest, I didn't tell him this until months later, but I had no idea who he was because I was so out of it when I came into detox. And he like took his hat off and was like, yeah, I'm from the Token Club. And then I kind of started to put the pieces together, like, oh yeah, we're friends on Facebook. I think I know you. And so it was nice to have someone familiar, even though I knew a lot of the staff and stuff. You know, it's a different vibe every time you go based on who the clients are, because those are the people that you're hanging out with and doing groups with and doing everything. So it was good to have someone familiar. And I remember, you know, being my crazy detox self, and one of the staff literally had to look at some of the new people and say, just give her a few days and she'll be fine. We've been through this. And, you know, you don't want people to be able to say that. So I did. I stayed there the 30 days. And at some point during my stay there that time, I just realized, like, I cannot keep doing this. I was beat down. I was tired. I couldn't afford to keep doing it. I mean, you know, like you said, I worked through most of my addiction. I went to beauty school. I got my cosmetology license. I worked in a salon. But it's hard to keep up with your addiction and keep up with your job. And I was going to lose my apartment. I had a cat that I was taking care of. I couldn't keep doing it. And if I wanted to live, I couldn't keep doing it because I knew, you know, when you're at the point when your mom's coming in to see if you're alive and you don't even know she's there, like, that's not good. So I that was the first time that I agreed. My therapist, I had the same therapist when I went before, and he basically approached me the third time and was like, look, I know you don't want to hear it. I know you don't want to go anywhere after this, but just think about it. Like, please just think about it. I don't want you to keep coming in here. And I think because no one was pushing me, it allowed me to make that decision for myself. Because I'm the type of person that if you tell me I have to do something, I'm going to say, fuck you, that's not what I'm doing. And
We'll joke around and say, it has to be my idea.
Exactly. So, you know, they do push those things pretty hard. And so this time I think that therapist knew this is not the way to go about it. And he let me make that decision on my own, and I did. And so I did my time there, and then I went into PHP, and I went to the same PHP and IOP that Sam went to as well. I can sit here and tell you that was by chance, but no, I probably my decision was impacted based on where he was going. And, you know, truly, it was just nice to have a familiar face there, and I had no intentions of getting together with him. Obviously, I had done the whole rehab romance thing before, but just with the staff. I saw that it didn't work out, and to be honest, I had a lot of reservations about Sam. I knew that he had been in the rooms but had never been sober, and that I had sober time. I knew that, you know, a lot of people like that may go back out. And I didn't want to take a chance with someone that's going to go back out. I wanted to have more time for myself to heal. I wanted to be alone. I thought I was in no place for a relationship. And, you know, I told him all those things. I told him, I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't, you know if it would work, whatever. But things happen, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And we got closer during our time there. You know, people made jokes. They actually, towards the end, had a staff that was designated to watching us because they thought we were like sneaking off to go do something, which we never did. I can honestly say we never did anything in rehab. But, you know, we did end up going to the same aftercare and started dating shortly after we got out. And thank God we're both still sober today with a baby. So...
Yeah. Thank God, especially that baby part.
Yeah.
You know, I always say, it's cool that, like, I got sober when I was 45.
Yeah.
You know, and that was cool. I'd done some damage to my children by
For
that
sure.
point. They were 8 and 10 at that point. They were scared to stay with me, and they were right about that. But we got to figure out how is to stop screwing up these kids.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the beautiful things. It almost feels like it's an assignment sometimes, and I love Scott Lee talks about that, my mission, my assignment today. And it seems at some level like I've been assigned these men to sponsor who are having kids now.
Wow.
You know, and Sam's not one of them, but I get to watch these men raise their children in a completely different way as a sober father and sober mothers, and this to where maybe there is a chance that, you know, we don't. And I it tickles me to death. I'm one of my sponsees. He asked me to be his son's godfather.
Wow.
And I get to watch this little guy grow up with this free spirit. And that's what, like in the TSSR deal, and what's going to be termed IM1 too. You know, we talk about being born pure and perfect, and then when we get out into the world, you know, sometimes that's used biblically. That's not what I mean, but you get out into the world, and your spirit starts getting stepped on. Whether if things happen like what you've explained, or just peer stuff as a child, you know, of being taught faulty teachings, parents that don't know what they're doing.
Right.
I'm blessed. I had really good parents, superstar dad for sure, and a really, really good mom too. But she was an addict. Yeah. She was a pharmaceutical addict, but it kind of come off of surgeries and stuff. First time I remember, I was 10 years old, and she, in this house, she sent me and my brother out to the backyard while all my aunts and uncles and stuff were in here. And she had announced to them that she had breast cancer. Well, I shoved Neil out the back door, and I let the storm door slam, and I snuck right there and listened to her tell them that, and didn't know what. I didn't know how to handle that, right? And she got put on pain medication because it was cancer after cancer after cancer after, and other things, and who knows really, right? But that's where I got my first pain pills.
Did she know? Did she ever know that you?
She never knew that I heard that. Wow. Never, ever heard that. Never, ever knew that. But, you know, what I heard is your mom's dying.
Right. It's a scary word.
And she survived to be 72 years old before she passed away in 2016. That would have been 1979. But she was still, she was the director of nursing at Ivy Tech up here. Wow. She put together their nursing program. So it was a weird thing, but she was hooked on those pills, and she overused them, and she had them as a daily thing. And man, when she couldn't get them, there was problems. But I didn't know that until I looked back in the rearview mirror later on. And
you can say, "Oh, this is why she was acting like that."
Yeah. And they would do driving vacations, and they've been on almost every state. I don't remember. I think Dad said they'd not been in 2 or something, and they haven't been to Alaska or Hawaii, but they would stop, and she would have to stay in this town until the prescription got transferred, from here in New Albany out to there, and you didn't do that for your acid reflux medication.
Yeah.
You're doing that for that stuff. But, it sounded like, your mom did a fantastic job, and addiction just is not necessarily enough. It's too powerful to, it'll beat that.
For sure.
And same thing with my upbringing. And I was going someplace with that for a minute, but I got spun out and can't remember. Oh, raising children.
Oh, yeah.
So as you and Sam get to raise a child as parents in recovery, it's certainly going to be a complete different experience than if you weren't.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine having one or both addict, like you talk about the madness in the way that you operated, and I've heard Sam too.
Right.
And then you got this little being you're trying to raise,
I can't imagine. But honestly, I also can't imagine raising a child without having recovery. Yeah. Even if I, just being one of us, I think now that I'm in recovery, it's so great because it's taught me so much more about life. I think I will be a better parent now than even if I had never had an addiction.
Never even had addiction. I agree with that 100%. Because you get tools.
Exactly.
And that's what Christopher says over and over again. And the biggest problem around, or at least in his estimation, is that we don't have tools. I didn't get tools growing up. I had a fantastic mom and dad, but I had no idea about how to do fucking life.
Right.
I just followed in the shadows of my circumstances and the people that I was around, and it always felt like I was watching you, see what you were doing, and I'd just do that. And today I got tools. And
even though my mom obviously I wasn't always in the best situations. My mom is an angel. I adore my mother, and I firmly believe she always did the best with what she could at the time. And we're very close today.
Because how do you do this? How do you know how to handle? I mean, we've got a lot more information today, and it's a lot more on the front lines about what to do but still parents don't know what to do.
Right. And
with an addict child.
And anytime your child is struggling at all, you're going to worry. And I think me becoming a parent has honestly given me a lot of grace for my mother, for things that I never understood, why she did things the way she did, or why she acted that way, or why she was so on top of things, or how she knew these things, and now becoming a parent, I see that she truly did it all out of love, and she was scared.
And she supported you the best she could.
Yep.
Like, my mom and dad both, but, I've had a few more years with my dad, and he's upstairs right now, and he's in a lot of pain and problems and stuff, and I try to be there every second that I possibly can. When we get done with this, before we got done, you did. At the beginning, I walked up, checked on him, made sure everything was cool. When we're done here, I will go do it again, and you get stuff like the night he wasn't doing well, and I'd done a few things for him that was, in his opinion, above and beyond, and he was thanking me, I was like, I love you, Dad. I love you. He said, you must really do love me.
Wow.
And I fog up doing that, but I get to do that today, and I bet your mom is a proud grandma now, right? Is
she goes by Mimi. She thinks
Mimi.
Grandma's an old lady.
That's okay.
name.
Yeah, my dad didn't want to be called Grandpa either for a while, but it just, kids pick what they gonna pick at some level, and they just started calling him Papa Tim, and
that's cute.
And he still is, and you get to bring that, after. It's kind of a little bit like payback, It's making up for it, that you get to scared her so bad probably so many times, because I can relate with that too. My daughter lived here with me for quite some time while she was still in the fentanyl thing, and to get up multiple times a night to go in your daughter's bedroom to see if she's still breathing is not a fun thing to be doing.
Right.
It's horribly scary. But now you've broken out the other side and have a beautiful child that you get to share with her, and the fruits of this recovery thing are just out of this world. You can't tell anybody. You can't, that's
absolutely.
Like the addict, like you couldn't hear it back then, right?
Oh,
Till
no.
someday you did. For whatever reason, it broke through. I always like to say it's like telling somebody what a strawberry tastes like. You can't explain that.
And what there's just been so many weird little things that make me truly know now, like, this is where I'm meant to be and this is what's happening. So I've always wanted to be a mom. During my whole life, I've wanted to be a mom, and I prayed for years, let me be a mom, but let me do it when it's with the right person. And I prayed that for years, and then, I get in this relationship and we're both in recovery and we both take it seriously, and he truly is the first man who has ever treated me how a woman should be treated. And he is amazing, and so I find out we're having a baby and everything, and then Theo was actually born on my mom's 60th birthday.
No kidding.
It's her first grandchild. He was born on her 60th birthday, and we had picked the name Theodore for no specific reason. It's not after anyone. It's just the name that we decided that we liked and would keep. And a couple weeks ago, I Googled what's the meaning of the name Theodore, and it literally means gift from God.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that when I picked it. So it's just,
I didn't know it.
all these things are lining up, and it just makes me feel like I truly am where I'm meant to be, like, for the first time ever. And it's a good feeling.
Yeah, it is a very good feeling. This thing of, so many times I get this notion, don't know what it is, but that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it is so cool. And I feel it at these podcast tables, and I feel I'm out in the world, and I'm sponsoring a guy, and various other things, even out handyman, and, like today with that lady that getting her internet hooked up. I don't know, did I say that already? That
I don't think
she said, "You're a safe." She said, "You're a saint." And I looked at her and I said, "You don't really know me." And she slapped me on the shoulder and started laughing,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was just a moment. It was cool because she does. But I'm open with them. I told them, I was texting you about it was getting to be 6 o'clock, and I knew I was 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
And you said you were too, and
Yeah.
I said, I do a couple podcasts, and I got a gal coming over here in a little bit to tell her 12-step recovery story. And, you can almost see, like, she said, well, go, you can come back here and do it later, And so no, I think we got it. I think we're.
And you literally pulled in as I was opening my door.
Yeah,
like
you were in the driveway, and that's the way life works out most of the time today, Dad's surgery's not supposed to be till 28th of March. First, it was going to be the 21st of March, and it got bumped out a week. Well, we shouldn't be waiting that long.
Right.
And today, I knew the surgeon was on vacation, and he was supposed to come back today. So I picked up the phone and I called, and the girl goes, "Oh, I don't think we're probably," and she's saying, "I don't think we can move it up." And she goes, "Oh, hold on a minute. We might be able to move it up to the 18th.
Wow.
And she said, and she hasn't called me back yet. But I enlist my, we're on a Discord.
Right.
And I enlist my prayer warriors. All right, start praying. Help me get Dad in surgery earlier because he's struggling.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that's probably going to happen.
It is, you guys, and I've told Sam so many times, I love when your home group celebrates birthdays, and I try to come to every birthday night I can, not only to support him and everyone else that's celebrating, but your guys' group is truly, I have never seen anything like it.
We have something unbelievable special.
I have never seen any other meeting or group of people or anything like it, and I'm jealous because I'm a woman. I can't come to it every week, and you guys truly have an amazing group, and it's like
it is
the coolest thing.
Such a miracle. Stumbled into that meeting. A friend of mine at work at that place where I worked 28 years told me that place has an office in Bangkok, Thailand, and we get to go there fairly often. Now I haven't been working there for 6 years since they laid me off, but they called me a couple of weeks ago and want to know if I would come back.
Wow.
And I'm not sure I want to because I kind of like this self-employment. What they're offering me is a part-time position, work 10, 15 hours a week. Offer me $95 an hour.
Wow.
And I just go, and they said, if you want to work more, you can work more. And so that's an interesting turn of events too. But this friend was telling me just back, when people are offering you help and you're going, no, I'm good. He was saying, man, you got to come to this Tuesday night meeting, dude. You never felt anything. You can't believe it. He said, And I'm always go, nah, man, I'm busy on Tuesday nights. I even joke around like one of my favorite old speakers, Bob Earl, says, like, even if you bring like a hot plate of warm cookies, I'll go, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you want a cup of coffee? You want a water? No, I'm good. How many times I have people come here and sit down and I ask them if they want some water, and they will go, nah. And they sit over there, and I'm like, why would you say no? You didn't bring some.
I was not shameful of that one.
No, you didn't. I was actually, I take note of that kind of thing when somebody will accept it. And so I told him, but then I got bound up pretty bad, you know, just the whole addiction thing is closing in on you, you know. And then one day I went in there and I was like, hey, man, are you going to that meeting tonight? And he stopped for a minute. And then I saw this thing in his eyes, like, and he goes, the church is closed tonight, but we're meeting in some dude's basement. And I was like, can I still go? And he goes, well, yeah.
Wow.
And he was all jacked up because I finally said yes, right? And then I went and I walked down in that basement, man, and I felt that energy right out of the gates. And I really made it. Somehow it didn't really work totally, but like I made a commitment to myself that this is where I'm going to be, and I'm going to help keep this energy going at this level. I want to be a part of this. I want to be an active part of it, and I get to today.
Yeah, and you do
and
the retreat.
That's why this is the Spiritual Underground podcast.
Yep.
Is because of this. It was knocked it off the wall. How about that? Yep, the retreats and get to have like those. That's one of my 10th birthday gifts.
Wow.
You know how we do the buffalo?
I've heard the story of the buffalo.
And on the back of that picture is 50 or 60 people's signatures.
Wow, how cool.
Wishing me a happy birthday on the back of it, you know. And it's like, why would you ever pass this up?
Right.
Once you got it, now I will tell you, same thing I tell some other people.
Yeah.
You have a glow in your eyes today, and you finally got this thing, right? And I know we don't ever say we got it. That's dangerous ground. But you've had this spiritual awakening. You've worked the steps.
Yep.
And I can see the glow in you all over you. Don't lose that.
I know.
Because it's damned hard to get back once you've got it.
It's hard. And I have to remind myself that, especially, you know, yes, I'm mom, but I'm still me. And that's the thing I'm kind of working on right now, is I still have to make time to take care of myself and go to my meetings and do my things. And, you know, because if I don't have this, I can't be the best for anyone else.
Nope. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yep.
Well, is there any final things you want to say? You got?
Not really. I mean, this was cool. I was nervous coming in, but I feel like once I got going, it was like,
you did a beautiful job.
This feels good.
Beautiful job. Yep, telling your story, and you were wonderful. I hardly had to prompt you at all.
Thank you.
And it was a great story, and thank you for being so vulnerable with me and the guests. And any kind of word to somebody who might be needing this thing and doesn't know if they want it or not?
I will share my favorite quote I've ever heard in a meeting, and it is this: I don't know if God brings me to these people or these people bring me to God. And I think about that a lot, but I think it goes both ways. And if you are looking for that, or looking for a way to get closer to God, or a way to get closer to other people, you get both here. And you know, it gets hard to tell who's bringing who, because it's so cool.
It is. It's just like trying to tell somebody what a strawberry tastes like. I got another quote from Scott Lee that says something similar: as I disclose myself to God, God discloses himself to me, or herself. I ain't sure. That's what's cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know I've tapped into an energy source that is working for me in my life. And so are you in this.
Yep.
And who cares if we call it a different word?
Right.
Another one of my things is that every culture has a different word for water. And we don't argue about who's right.
That's kind of fun. That's so true.
But that word, well, we kill each other.
Yeah.
We go to war over whether if your God is right or not.
Yeah.
But, and what's the difference? Because both of them are vital.
Right.
And it's cool stuff. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I always close the podcast with two things. Do you have any idea how long you've been talking?
No. Sam did just text me and say that Theo finally fell asleep, so I know it's past his bedtime.
We got an hour and 40 minutes.
Wow. It did not feel like
that's
that.
cool, ain't it? I like it. I get high doing this.
Yeah.
I feel good. It juices me up to do this, and I hope that you felt. It seemed that you felt comfortable doing it, and
for sure.
And I get this wonderful gift of getting to know you better. And I think that's also a piece of what we're doing here in recovery is improving our connections and getting to know one another better. I think that's what we were trying to do using. It's just a faulty system.
Right.
In the beginning, I'm trying to fit in and be part of, and we get to do this today. So I always close with two things. If you're not having a blast in your recovery, you're not doing it right. And just want to thank everybody out there for allowing Christine and I to participate in our recovery in this manner tonight. Peace out.
That was cool.